Du débat, the honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm here today virtually in the House to speak on Motion 61, which was put forward by the member for Edmonton Manning with the title of Support of Oil and Gas Sector. There is no doubt. Fossil fuels have brought wealth to our country. I believe that this motion is based in concern, a very real one, about the workers in this sector, and it is a concern that I share. With respect to the great benefits that we have received due to this sector, I hope that all members in this House are ready to recognize and accept that it is time to find a new path forward. The reality of climate change is that it is happening across the planet, and it is changing our world in a way that scientists are telling us again and again. There is no time to wait. It is time to get moving forward and be progressive. I hear all too often from conservatives in this place that Canada is just a tiny portion of the emissions compared to other countries. Well, Madam Speaker, that's simply not the case. And I'm working for a country that I want to see as a leader and an innovator in facing the worldwide climate crisis. Madam Speaker, recently we conducted a study in the Committee of Indigenous and Northern Affairs on food security in the most northern communities of this country. Again and again, we heard testimony from those communities, and the impacts of climate change were at the top of the list. The environment in their communities are changing so quickly that there is absolutely no time for them to adapt. And with the high cost of food, this reality is leaving people behind and hungry. This motion has 8 substantive parts. Today I will address several of them. Firstly, the motion states, replacing oil and gas with more environmental sustainable options is not technologically or economically feasible. Well, Madam Speaker, this is simply not true. These statements are frustrating to me. There was a time when the technologies of today did not exist. The reason they exist now is because of the significant investment and visionaries who saw the world in a new way. The reality is those people are here now. Technologies are developing quickly that are more sustainable. The investments are happening, and I believe
The honourable member has an issue with her connection, or we do, but we just have a frozen screen right now. Oof.
Sorry, is there something wrong, Madam Speaker?
Yeah, you froze for a few seconds. Perhaps take back to the last 2 sentences before I rose. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll do my best. And I'm sorry, I am plugged in, so I'm not sure what happened with my connection. So I just was saying earlier that the people who have the vision and the innovation are here now, and technology is developing so quickly that is more sustainable. Investments are happening, and I think it's high time that the Government of Canada increase their support to innovation. I'm also frustrated by this comment because of the simple reality that we are talking about a non-renewable resource. That means it will end. The conservative vision seems to believe that we will still be here on this planet if we keep using this resource in the way that we are today. I do not agree with this idea and say this confidently, knowing that most scientists in the relevant fields keep saying repeatedly in so many different ways that this is happening. The climate crisis is here and we fundamentally have to change. The fact that that this government is not listening is terrifying to me. It is time for bold solutions and investing in the future that leaves our children with a planet that is livable. All too often when we discuss the shift to a low carbon reality, conservatives repeat that it cannot be done, that it is too expensive, or that people in Canada do not believe or stand to support that. Well, whenever I hear this, it makes me think of a leader that I greatly admire, who once told all Canadians, don't tell them that it cannot be done. Don't let them tell you it cannot be done. What I hear is that the people of Canada expect us to do this. They are becoming more and more disappointed and cynical about feeble government responses to climate change. Options that are more environmentally sustainable are technologically feasible. The electrification of Canada's vehicles is happening faster than was expected. Even the most optimistic experts could not have imagined the progress that we are seeing. The results are in. A KPMG survey found that 70% of Canadians want their next car to be electric. Conservatives have admitted this in their late and somewhat confusing plan to fight climate change. I'm still a little concerned about their membership voting on whether or not climate change is real when scientists have been very clear repeatedly. And I am concerned about the other reality that Conservatives are unclear on their position regarding climate change and what's happening in our environment. And hopefully we will see some clarity soon. Canada knows that to fuel electric vehicles, we need non-emitting clean electrical sources. Already, 80% of Canada's electricity is non-emitting. Renewable solutions like wind and solar projects combined with utility-grade storage and strategic renewal of our electrical grid can be built to fill in the difference. These solutions are economically feasible. Wind and solar are the cheapest energy sources on the planet. And even with this knowledge, Canadians watch as both Conservatives and Liberals throw billions of dollars at the fossil fuel industry, building more and more larger and larger pipelines in a desperate attempt to pump oil out of the ground faster, right at a time when the oil demand is predicted to decline. And the demand must decline and decline rapidly. As countries look to live up to the Paris targets, it must decline if we are to halt the horrific impacts of climate change. The cost of this inaction is in the trillions of dollars. Secondly, this motion says Canada's energy needs require the use of oil and gas to heat Canadian homes. Madam Speaker, energy efficiency in our homes and buildings in Canada is one of the lowest hanging fruits in the fight against climate change. If Canada invested in a serious program to retrofit buildings, reduce energy consumption, and change building codes to ensure that the new buildings use little to no energy, we can easily get rid of a quarter of our carbon dioxide emissions. The technology is there. Again, Canada needs to assure that the investment is supported. The motion also states that Canadian oil and natural gas are produced with the highest environmental standards in the world. There is no doubt that most domestic oil and gas producers are doing their very best to reduce their industrial emissions. Yet we have some of the highest, we have some of the highest environmental standards in the world, which Canadians expect. This does not change the fact that the oil sands will require an investment of over 200 billion, pardon me there, Madam Speaker, 200 billion to rehabilitate. This is very concerning as no company has put that sort of money aside to do this work. In Canada, we see companies abandoning idle wells. Billions of taxpayer dollars will pay to clean those up. This motion also states that Canadian resources create Canadian jobs. Our country was built on natural resources. This is why I brought forward Motion 53, Principles for a Sustainable and Equitable Future. The history of Canada is one rich in resources and the extraction of resources. The reality is things are changing, and as they change, workers need to be at the core of the solutions. My motion addresses this, asking for workers to be supported during the change, that resources flow from the federal government to all ridings in this country. Most high resource industry areas are in rural and remote areas in Canada. Significant wealth has come out of those regions, and when resources change or are limited, they are often left behind. My motion addresses these concerns, and it is time that while we recognize addressing the climate emergency is a priority, we also have to make sure those solutions are local and that the potential jobs that are there are invested in to support our workers. This motion also speaks to the fact that First Nations communities receive some income from these projects. This cannot be taken lightly, especially as we must all recognize in this place where we sit, has created legislation for well over 100 years to assure that economic marginalization continues in First Nations communities. As we face the climate crisis, the energy transition is key, and working with innovation in First Nations communities must be at the very core of every decision made. We need measures in this country that look at sustainability and support everyday workers, measures that address fairness and not giving so much power to big corporations that take money and leave Canadians holding the costs of fixing and workers without a job. This motion does not address this, therefore I cannot support it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Resuming